It just turned 2026, and you know what that means. New intellectual property has just entered the public domain. One piece of media that enters the public domain in 2026 is The Little Engine That Could, which means that probably by 2027, we're going to have a Little Engine That Could slasher movie. I think I kill, I think I kill, I think I kill, I think. But what I'm more excited about is the original Nancy Drew enters the public domain in 2026. The 1930s version of Nancy Drew, the first iteration of Nancy Drew. And I am actually kind of excited about that because I think this is a good cultural moment to bring her back. Because the way I see it, the original Nancy Drew, the 1930s Nancy Drew, is just intrinsically proto-feminist, anti-tradwife content in a way that you just can't get around. So just to put everybody on the same page, Nancy Drew starts off as a book series in the 1930s that's aimed at like young girls. And at this point, there's something like 200 Nancy Drew books. There's been dozens of different people who've written it. There's been TV and movie adaptations. But what's entering the public domain, and specifically all I am talking about in this video, is the original run of Nancy Drew books from the 1930s. And the premise of those books themselves are proto-feminist in a way that you just cannot escape. Nancy is a 16-year-old girl whose mother has passed away. She's being raised by a single father who's a lawyer. And the books are about Nancy going around solving like kind of Scooby-Doo type of mysteries about who stole some money or who cheated at a boat race or something like that. And then turning the evidence over to her lawyer father, who then does the grown-up thing of putting it through the court or whatever. But here is the critical, super important thing that you must understand. In all of those books, Nancy is always the person who decides that she wants to do something. Her dad isn't putting her up to it. Her dad isn't saying, go be my spy. No one will expect a 16-year-old girl. Nancy herself hears about some sort of crime. She decides personally based off her own moral compass who she thinks is right and who she thinks is wrong. And then she decides on her own independently of any man or any adult what she's going to do about it. Nancy is sitting there in the 1930s modeling to young girls and young women what it would look like to be an independent person with an independent conscience running around making decisions for themselves in an era where a lot of young girls didn't have those kind of role models in the real world. Here's a fun fact that I don't think is a coincidence. If you were a girl born in the United States in the same year that women got the right to vote in the United States, you would have been 10 years old when the first Nancy Drew book came out. And the books are like plausibly apolitical. They never come out and say like, hey, what we want to do here is like encourage young women to have notions. But just by having a character who is a young woman making independent moral decisions on her own and then acting on them, it's giving young girls notions. I'm not saying that like little girls in the 1930s read Nancy Drew and then immediately decided to go run for Congress, but I am saying that I would bet you that there was lots of young women born in the United States in the 1920s, 1930s, who read Nancy Drew, and even without realizing they were influenced by it, they were influenced by it. Even if it was just in like small ways, even if it was just to like say, no, you should have an opinion about how many kids you and your husband are going to have. No, you should reject a marriage proposal if you don't like it. No, you should decide where you're going to go to college if you want to go to college. And it gets away with it. It does it on the down low and so stealthily because the idea of Nancy Drew, the whole premise, shows, but it doesn't tell. It never says out loud, hey, do feminism. It just demonstrates somebody doing kind of like a low-key kid sort of understandable example of what feminism might look like. It let young women test drive out or fantasize out the idea of independence. The rights are already cleared. If you want to make a comic book, a web series, a cartoon, a movie, a TV show, whatever, of 1930s Nancy Drew, you can just do it. And I think we need this character to come back.